the guys in the locker room after the game. You know, we're collectively, it's not working. How about now? Do I need to do anything? It's on?
Oh, man.
Nope, not on. Now? There we go.
This is the state of the USMNT men's soccer after crashing out of Copa America 2024. And where do we go from here? As a soccer team, where do we go from here as U.S. fans? Where should we go? Where should they go? It's a great question. I posted today, early in the morning, that most of the U.S. soccer fandom is on social media, hitting that refresh button, waiting to just see the headline come out. Is it F5? Somebody sent me a GIF of somebody just hitting F5. Is that the refresh button? Just waiting for the announcement from U.S. Soccer Federation that a change has been made. And I get it. It's not going to happen. I think it does need to happen. And I think that we should have moved on after the World Cup. And I think everybody would be in a much better place. U.S. team would be in a better place. Fans would be in a better place. Berhalter, I think, would be in a better place if everybody would have just moved on after the World Cup. But that didn't happen. And here we are. The U.S. lose to Uruguay and crash out of Copa, going 1 win and 2 losses, which I will say, heading into Copa, my prediction, again, prediction and expectations are different, right? My prediction was that the U.S. would go 1-1-1, that we would beat Bolivia, we would lose to Panama, and then we would somehow pull a draw versus Uruguay, because I figured by then Uruguay would have things kind of wrapped up, which they kind of did. It would have taken a fluke, crazy game to, I think, knock them out if the U.S. would have won, and then it came down to goal differential. But that wasn't going to happen. But I really thought that the U.S. would be able to pull out a draw prior to Copa starting. My prediction: 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss. We end up with 1 win and 2 losses. The not surprising loss to Panama, we had talked about before whether or not that was shocking, right? We had the two different banners that we were testing on YouTube, the A/B testing on which one does better. Shocking with the exclamation mark, or shocking, where the last part of shocking goes up a tick, right? Shocking, and then it's a question mark that it's not so shocking that Panama plays a typical Panama CONCACAF game and baits us into the stupid red card taken by Timothy Weah. And we end up losing that game, setting us up for something that we shouldn't have put ourselves into that position, but we did. This is something that I think we see over and over and over again in the last 5 years with this U.S. team, that somehow we think collectively this team should be better than what they are. And our expectations are that we won't even be put into these positions to where you have to gain a point or beat a Uruguay, which is crazy that we're even thinking this part right now. That just shows where we're kind of confused as a U.S. men's national team fan base on what expectations are, where we're saying, well, we shouldn't have put ourselves in a position to where we have to get at least a point or win versus Uruguay, where we should be to a point to where we look at Uruguay and we're like, why wouldn't we beat them? That's the place that we want to get to. Do you think other top teams that are out there, and let's just say within CONMEBOL, Argentina and Brazil, are looking at Uruguay and saying, well, let's not put ourselves in that position? They could care less who they're playing. Their expectations are that they should win. And that is something that I think that we struggle with the U.S. team, because I don't think we quite know what we have. Or at least we've said that up until recently. I think now we know what we have. I think we have a pretty good handle as to what we're dealing with, what this team is, what this collection of players are. And we have to come to that, this moment of maybe we've all been a little too off on this team and these players. Because after watching them for 5 years, this particular group, majority of the group, because it has kind of changed since after 2019. This particular group is not that good. They're not that good of a team. And individually, when we really take a look at it, if we were to remove ourselves from being just U.S. fans of this particular team, I'm not gonna say it. Well, I'm gonna say it one more time, but I'm not gonna attribute this particular phrase. I'm not using it anymore, and I think that we need to come together and say any other channel or media person, anybody that's talking about the quote golden generation for U.S. soccer, let's get that retired. That and Captain America. I say get rid of golden generation and we get rid of the Captain America, because I think that it's kind of corny. But let's get rid of that. Let's quit saying it. They're just the most recent generation of the U.S. men's national team. And technically, skill-wise, collectively are probably better than any team that we've ever had, if you're just looking at just kind of skills and opportunities, more opportunities than any other group has ever had, and more success playing overseas than any other group kind of has. But do we really have any kind of special players relative to what we have? I guess you can technically say, yeah, we do, which is it's probably Pulisic. Is he a special player? He's a really good player, but as we have found out, he's not one. He can carry this particular team at times, but he's not one to carry a team and lead a team over a long period of time. Very talented player, but is he one of those special players? Great season at Milan this past season, but is that somebody that is a good player that is surrounded by other good players in a good situation to where all ships rise when the water rises? What's that phrase? All ships rise when the sea rises or something. I don't know. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. Pulisic, I think, is a really good player when he's put in a certain situation, but he's not one that's going to carry a team long term, like the leader of the group. He's just not that type of personality, and you see it quite a bit when you watch them play and you watch them play these big games. And there's no taking away. He goes all out when he plays for the U.S. team, and the goals that he's scored, that World Cup goal, incredible, just determination and grit. But he's not that leader. I think the player that we thought we had that was that sort of leader on the field was Tyler Adams. And with his injury over the last year, he's just, we don't necessarily know what goes on behind the scenes. There might be some kind of leadership structure, some guys that truly are kind of leaders. But I think for the most part, a lot of us can identify and see that when you're watching games over a long period of time. Tyler Adams has exhibited that on the field. We thought he was that guy, but it's hard when you're not playing and you're not out there battling because of injury or whatever. You can't be that leader. And if he's not, Pulisic's not, you watch, and I'm not picking on Pulisic. I'm just stating what I think is somewhat obvious, that he doesn't have that leadership when you're playing and things get tough. He's very much, I think the one major drawback for Pulisic is that he's kind of a whiner, and he's always complaining when he's on the field. Like I don't see him being the leader, other than maybe a leader by example of certain plays, or getting out there and grinding things out, making things happen. I'll give him that. But what ruins it for me, and it's every single game, and especially ones that are tight and are gritty and dirty, kind of like the Uruguay game was last night. He complains way too much to be an effective leader, even to the point to where there was one part in the game towards the end, Pepe had to, I don't know, I don't remember exactly what happened. It's all kind of a blur to me now, but Pepe kind of had to push him off or push him away, like, get out of here, go get set, go do something. And there was another one where his feet were taken out from under him. We were trying to hurry, right? We only had a few minutes left, and he's down on the ground, maybe, I guess, trying to draw a foul. It wasn't coming, and what's the purpose of doing that right then and there? Because it wasn't in you weren't going to take any kind of direct free kick right outside the goal. So what is he doing rolling around on the ground when we had to get going? And I don't know if somebody ran over there and picked him up or tried to get him up and get him going. I'm thinking it might have been Turner, but it was just, this team is not that good. So here's the problem, and it kind of goes into talking a little bit about CONCACAF. When your direct rivals are not good either, your other teams are not good, that's not a good situation for you. Why I'm saying this is that during Copa, if we're not facing Mexico, Canada, Panama, I'm rooting for CONCACAF teams to do well in these tournaments, because I think that the better our direct rivals are, the more successful they are, the more pressure it puts on us to have to do the same thing. So I was rooting for Mexico to get out of pool play. They disappointed yet again. I'm rooting for Canada. Canada made it out. Great. I think they've got a great shot to get to the semis. We'll see. Panama made it through. Great. I love seeing Panama make it through. Even if it was at the expense of the United States. At least we got a couple teams through. But when Mexico's not good, they don't make it out. You know, World Cup Canada didn't do very well then. I'm hoping that they do something here in Copa, because it puts pressure on the United States. Jesse Marsh, being successful with Canada getting out of the group stage into the quarters, hopefully into the semis. You just never know. Puts the magnifying glass, puts the pressure on the United States. Anytime Canada, Mexico, any of those teams are good and are successful, I root for that when I can. When they're not battling head to head with the U.S., I'm rooting for them to do well. I'm a Mexico fan. I'm a Canada fan. I love Alphonso Davies. And I think it's a good thing. If Panama do well in the knockouts, that's a good thing for the U.S. because it puts more pressure on the decision makers at U.S. Soccer to have to do something. What that is, don't know just yet. We have to take a look and see, since Berhalter has taken charge of this team, legitimately, are we headed in a certain direction that the powers that be are like, we want to see, we have to give him time, and we have to keep heading in this certain direction. It may take a while, but we have to keep heading in this direction because we like what we're seeing. We have enough indication that things are going well based off of the markers that we have of what we want to see him do. Do we give him some more time? I think we've had plenty of time to determine whether or not we're heading in the right direction. But this feeling that we all have watching them bomb out of Copa while it's being hosted in the United States, all eyes on this team to do something. The so-called collective group of special players. I'm not saying it anymore. What a disappointment. Beyond disappointment, it's a failure on a lot of levels. This morning, last night after the game, everybody's kind of complaining about the offsides goal. And I'm like, okay, so what difference would that have made in the end? We still didn't get it done. Everybody's watching the Bolivia-Panama game, hoping Bolivia does something. Why are we to that point where we need Bolivia to do something for us? That just reinforces where we are with this team and our realistic expectations on what should be going down. I mean, would we seriously be happy if the reason why we made it through was because Bolivia helped us out? I mean, we'll take it. I'll take it. But that's more of a sign that something's not right. And speaking of signs of things that were not right, I go back again to pre-Copa. And I was talking about that Colombia game. That was nothing but red flags for all of us on where we would end up. And that's why I said the Panama game was not a shocker. And that's why I thought that this team would go 1-1-1 in Copa. Because that Colombia game, which was our first tune-up game versus a fantastic team, a really good team, one that we should have gotten up for and been excited to go out there and compete and just on effort. And I realized leading up to Copa and a potential team that you could play, you don't want to show too many things, but you could show effort, and you can definitely not quit or get beat by 4 goals. That was what, 5-1. That was the first signal to us that this team is not, something's wrong. In addition, there's more than one thing that's wrong, and that's going on with this team. Mentally, this team is not very strong. And to go into that Colombia game and just have like an off game, where everybody's like, well, that's one game. Let's redeem ourselves versus Brazil and get into Copa. But how are you not geared up and ready to take on Colombia any chance that you have? Now, if it was like Turks and Caicos was the first tune-up game, and you go out there and you have a stinker, I get it because nobody's excited to play Turks and Caicos. Do they even have a team? I don't even know if they had. Did we play them in qualifying for World Cup or so? I don't know. You get what I'm saying. Colombia is a team that you will always or should always get up for if you have a chance to play them. whether it counts or not. And that was my signal that, man, something's off. And especially that second half when they just quit. I don't know if it's an entitled group or one that kind of fame a little bit kind of has gotten to their head that they're the special group. They get to play overseas, or at least they're overseas on teams. Playing's kind of in quotes, right? I think the players, the star players that we have, I think it's kind of gotten to their head lately that when they come back here, they're kind of big shots and they're the big Euro players, club players. That Colombia game was huge. Oh, but we did so well versus Brazil. The key game was the Colombia game. That's the first one that they had been practicing. They had been together for, I don't know how many couple weeks or something. They've been training, getting excited for Copa. And you come out and that happens. That's the effort. So something was wrong. There was an indication that Colombia game was huge. That this team was not doing something special for Copa. Even though a lot of people out there, semifinals, possibly win Copa. Is this it? We can do it. No indication in the data set heading back to when Berhalter took over that would ever happen. There's more data out there that we would shoot ourselves in the foot and make it harder. And it absolutely did. Now, the big thing right now is, did we see enough failure in Copa for U.S. soccer to feel like they have to make a change? I know that's what probably most of us are hoping, with the exception of Berhalter and the exception of 95% of the team. I don't see it. He's not going anywhere. I would love to get done with this recording here and then pop into my social media feed and see it splashed everywhere. Berhalter fired, let go. Because it's not necessarily his specific fault of game management and roster decisions. I know some of you can pick that apart. I'm not going to do it. There's enough bigger picture items. You can probably make the case if you want to get into the managerial type stuff. I'll leave that to the other guys, the ladies I follow. Tactical situations and all that stuff. I'm talking, is there enough of something's not headed in the right direction for U.S. soccer to make a decision? And I don't think by whatever guidelines they went off of to hire Berhalter and rehire him mostly, whatever data points they had set up, if we're looking at this like a business, and you sit down with your employee, I want to see this for the year. I want to see you hit some sales goals. What are those goals? What are we looking at if we're sitting down with everybody within the U.S. soccer board that have a decision on who should be in charge of this team? What is that list? What are things that you wanted to see from this team? What are the markers? Copa had to be one of them, a big one, and you don't even get out of group play. Oh, but the second game, Panama, red card, it's not Gregg Berhalter's fault. Directly, no, he's not the one that went out there and punched the guy in the face, or whatever you want to say happened. But these guys aren't prepared to know that kind of game is going to happen with Panama. After going through this with Sergiño Dest, watching him mentally just break down and continue to just dig himself into more of a hole and put the team at risk. That's not a learning moment for everybody that Berhalter not only addresses then and there, but prior to this game that's coming up with Panama. Don't get caught up in falling for some of this stuff, guys. You know it's going to be ugly. It's going to be a grind. It's going to be, referee's going to be busy. We can't give him 20 minutes and Weah falls apart and loses it. So it's still something that I think the coaching staff has to take some blame for. Weah takes most of it, but there is still some to go around for the coaching staff on that. It's hard to say what the goals are for this team. We have what we have set for our goals, what we think are goals for this team. If they're headed in the right direction, is this the right group of people leading this team heading into another tournament that we're hosting in 2 years, the biggest one of them all? This is what we want to go through again in 2 years? Because it's the same talking points. It's the same thing we're talking about now that we did after the World Cup, leading to the World Cup qualifying. Two big things for Berhalter is he did turn things around. When we didn't qualify, he got us back there and got us into an elimination game. You have to give him credit for that. Yes, you do have to give him credit for dominating Mexico. Kind of a luck of the draw for us that Mexico has been so weak. But what does that really mean, again, when it's Mexico's worst generation of players and personnel and people running that team? Now, Berhalter can't help it that Mexico's terrible. He did what he had to do. He went out and beat Mexico. Gold Cup. What are the other bullshit cups that we have? Those are things you are expected to compete for. I don't necessarily win. I do think some of the goals that the Federation has for this team are a little more realistic. I know it sounds funny, but maybe are a little more realistic than we are. Where we think that Gold Cup, Sun Cup, whatever the hell cups those are that we won, we barely get by, Jamaica? That maybe U.S. soccer's like, as long as we're competing for those, we're fine. That's where we want to be. Most of us are like, we should win them. That's where the bar should be. But if we're coming to the conclusion now, which I am, that this team, this collection of players are absolutely overrated, and I'm at fault for that too. I went on the hype train the last 4 years. Oh, Gio Reyna. How stupid do we look and sound when we're so infatuated with Gio Reyna to people outside of this country? He didn't even play. Gio Reyna got skill, has had some effect on the field, has made some incredible plays and setting up other people. I get it. But as much as we're carrying on about Gio Reyna, possibly even getting mad at Berhalter for not playing him, he's not that good in the grand scheme of things. I think aside from Pulisic, to where we're like, okay, yeah, he's a good player, but he's not one that can carry things. Pulisic's a good player when it's complementing other good players. Anthony Robinson, I think, is a good player. Balogun, I think, is a really good, skilled player. We just don't know necessarily how to use him, other than I think we kind of got lucky with him the last few games. Made a little extra effort to just get him the ball. But you can tell he's a high-skilled, high-quality player. But he's dependent on us getting him the ball. We're just not that good. We're better than Mexico. We're probably better than Canada. What are we gonna show for that, though? We can't. We're probably better than Panama, who was like missing like everybody. Not and of the players that they were missing, that shouldn't be a difference maker in, okay, are we better than Panama or not? Of course, right? We should be. Weston McKennie, what's going on, man? Musa also. I was excited to see Musa start and get in the game, but again, if you haven't been used and the game plan can't take advantage of anything for you, you're not part of the game plan. And then it's like, okay, well, save us. It's kind of like what they try to do with Gio in the World Cup. Get out there and try to score 4 goals for us. Try to go out there and go do something. Even though we don't consistently use you and don't really want to, go try to fix this. What I'm saying is, I think we were asking too much of Musa in this last game. But he should have not only been in this last game, but the other 2 games. And I have to ask this question. I have to. And I don't understand how. Let me just ask the question. Who's better with their feet on the ball? Matt Turner or Haji Wright? I don't get Haji Wright. And I don't understand how there's so many fans of his that think that he's some kind of a difference, like we should have been using him more. He can't play the ball on his feet. It's a legitimate question. Who's better with the ball at their feet, Matt Turner or Haji Wright? It's the same for me. And watching yesterday's game, there was one classic Matt Turner. I don't even know what part of the game. The ball was played back to him, and it was just, you felt bad for him. Try not to fall over the ball and play the ball out. And at the end of the game for Haji Wright, some beautiful passing, by the way. I think it was Reyna, was Pulisic involved on that? I don't know who was involved with all the one-time passes there towards the very end, when it all mattered. The ball was just tic-tac-toe. And a beautiful ball played into Haji Wright, who completely just, what is he doing? That's the foot skill of our striker? You can't tell the difference between him and Balogun? And why there's it's not even close. I don't get Haji Wright. Somebody explain it to me. I'm not being mean. I don't get it. But for all of us that we're sitting here today, the day after Copa elimination, and we're just waiting for that press release coming out that Berhalter's gone. I just don't think it's going to happen. I just don't. I'm in St. Louis. I'm not an MLS guy at all. Nothing against MLS. It's just not my thing to watch. I find very little entertainment. I was somewhat interested in the whole Messi down in Inter Miami and watching those games last year. And this year with Suarez, Busquets, Alba, I'm just like, shouldn't I be subscribing just to watch that? And watch my local St. Louis team that apparently did really well last year, their first year, and did well and then completely bombed out of the playoffs. They just fired their coach, I think yesterday. The St. Louis team did. I saw that come halfway through the season. Like, we're not heading in the right direction. A guy that took, I think, the team last year, that was their first year, right? The St. Louis team, and did so well, was given just a portion of the following season. And they're like, nope, you're done. Like, where is that? Where is that level of expectation and performance on the national level for this U.S. team? No, we need to see more. We need to give them more time. We like the chemistry. We like his relationship with all the players. The players love him. And there we are again, where it's the rumblings over the last few months about maybe the players, everybody, we're all just a little too comfortable. Way a little too comfortable and not necessarily worried about any kind of repercussions for something like what he did. Pulisic, even Reyna, McKinney, everybody's kind of just comfortable. Everybody loves their coach. And that's part of the mentorship that I give to Berhalter, and that I think, soccer aside, U.S. national team aside, I think he does put in the work behind the scenes of being a mentor to a lot of these players. But there has to be more to it. And I think if you're ranking a lot of that stuff in importance, that's at the bottom of the list of the things that you want to see. A coach that has good relationship, a good mentor, cares about his players, the players love him. Important for sure. But if you're listing out the top 10 things that you want to see in a coach, that's got to be towards the bottom. Because at some point, this is a business. And you have to start winning. How crazy was it watching that game? And reminds me of playing my boys in FIFA or FC 24. Like, I need this camera angle when I'm playing on the Xbox, just so I can see where everybody's kind of at, and I can see the plays develop, know where my players are, the passing. I love this angle for playing on the Xbox. How funny was this during the game to where is this the skybox camera? You know, on when you're choosing between the camera modes in FIFA FC 24, and you're trying to find that camera angle that you can play with, and they go down towards either end, the final third on either end, and then that abrupt camera change to where it's jarring, because you go from skybox blimp camera to something that completely you lose the play. The production side of it yesterday was awful. The story that the U.S. team should have had the better locker room, but they're in the shitty visitors locker room. Uruguay got the Kansas City Chiefs locker room. It's just funny. But this camera angle, does this happen at Euros? I feel bad. Like, I can see it happening for a U.S. game, but for the respect that should be paid, this would never happen to Argentina, right? Or Brazil. Probably shouldn't happen to Uruguay either. It's just funny. I don't know what to tell you. You can continue to subscribe to get access to watching these games. That's nothing. None of that's going to change. We'll still be rocking our jerseys and watching whatever tune-up games that they'll have before the World Cup. But can you imagine gearing up? I'm talking on the production side, the business side of things for the World Cup in 2026, how huge this is going to be for the U.S. and a lot of businesses, where we should have this excitement leading up to it, to where we're like, oh man, the excitement to where you have to go play a little on the Xbox because you're so amped up. You're like, I want to play with the U.S. team and play against Spain and Italy and England, because you're so amped up for World Cup to start. How do you have such negativity? You're accepting it going into World Cup if things stand as they are and you don't get rid of Berhalter. What a massive bummer, letdown, disappointment this will be heading into what should be the biggest moment in U.S. soccer history. We've had the World Cup before, but I'm saying this is huge coming up to showcase. These players should be more than in their prime, wanting to go down as just legends that transcends more than just soccer. And we're going to go into it just bitching and moaning and complaining and just like, and we'll be talking the same thing. We'll have some tune-up games. We'll half-ass those, question marks. And the realistic expectations should be we'll compete for some of the games in pool play. It's almost impossible not to make it out of pool play, I think. The way the World Cup set up for 2026. But don't you just know that we're in the same Groundhog's Day cycle? If Berhalter stays, this is exactly what we're going to be doing, complaining about, and then our moment's gone. We're on the outside looking in at the World Cup in our own country in 2 years, if he's still here. Why would he do that to himself? And if he truly cares for these players and he truly wants what's best for the players, why wouldn't he remove himself? Because he's selfish. I don't think Gregg's a bad guy. I really don't. Oh, but he look. I really factor everything in, and everybody we know and who bad guys are, good guys are. I don't think Gregg's a bad guy. He's here too long. If he would have left after that World Cup, take his name out of the hat, not applied or anything, his legacy within U.S. soccer, I think would actually be pretty good down the road. But by coming back and staying, just completely ruining everything, he's going to be miserable. Because everybody doesn't want, most everybody outside of the players, which maybe it's him and the players, and they tune everything else out. And kudos to them. But just knowing the people that are interviewing you, a couple questions to the media people that were talking to Gregg at that news conference to where he's at the beginning. Is this thing on? Hello? Hello? Is this thing on? Should I do something? Gregg, should you still be the coach? Do you still want to be the coach? Do you still think that you still have something to give to this team to take them to the next level? Yes. I think that was his answer. Yes. Why are you doing this to yourself, Gregg? Start over somewhere else. Sometimes you have a window, and I'll even give to him his tenure up until the World Cup as a good time period, considering from where we started from, what he inherited. If he would have just gone, I would put his little time period into a positive time for the U.S. men's national team and setting them up to go to that next level with somebody else. But you outstay your welcome. You have to realize you're not good together anymore. You can still be their mentors. You can still have this chemistry that you have with everybody behind the scenes, helping them out. The players need a major shakeup. Again, and one more thing, we have to give Berhalter credit for the roster. I know that sometimes we're like, Shaq Moore's warming up, and you're like, well, 2024, or are we back? Or where are we at? Roster-wise, we've got the best players in play here on paper, on the list. The players, aside from any kind of injury, the ones that we all deemed as being the top players are here. He's got that right. I was getting ready to do a show of looking at the roster heading into World Cup and the roster now. But I just like, let's not look back. Let's look forward. But how funny is that? The players that he was putting on this team prior to the World Cup compared to now. It seemed like we were fighting him tooth and nail to realize it. Mr. Speed and Power. Remember him? Instead of Reyna coming in, we needed speed and power. Or did he say power and speed and power? I think it was speed and power. Why didn't Giorena play? Context of the game, we needed some speed and power. Will always live in my head. He just needed to know when to go, just like I do right now. We're heading up on an hour of this show, just talking. And I'm like, and we need to put this to bed, which is what we're going to do. So if it hasn't come out first thing today, it's not going to. Because that obviously wasn't a check mark among the powers that be in determining Berhalter's future, his job, what they're wanting to see. Failure at Copa was not an item to get checkmark. If it was that important, he would have been gone this morning. I mean, could it happen? I mean, it could. I wouldn't be shocked. I think it needs to happen, but it's not going to. So prepare to do all of this over again for the next 2 years. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of us just kind of fell off and like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. Because it's not even, is it fun? It's not fun. I just don't think that it's not going to happen. He's not getting fired.